And like I said, we went in the morning, so it wasn't too packed or anything. And then we hiked down into Villefranche and had lunch. And I was telling my husband, we're eating by the seaside in Villefranche. It's absolutely beautiful. I'm eating pizza, which is my favorite food, and listening to Earth, Wind, and Fire. I don't think it's going to get any better for me. Like, it was perfect.
Welcome to the Where Have You Been podcast. I'm your host, Bill Ream, and each week on the pod, I have conversations with incredible guests from all walks of life. Expect to hear funny, crazy, emotional, life-changing, and even sometimes life-threatening stories and experiences that will entertain and inspire you. As always, I appreciate your likes, subscriptions, ratings, and reviews wherever you are listening. It doesn't sound like much, but it truly helps the pod get to the ears of more people who may enjoy it. And check out the website, whybpodcast.com, for links to the socials where you can find pictures from the guests and their stories, and also buy merch if you're so inclined. Now let's get to this week's episode. Thank you for being here. Welcome back into the Where Have You Been podcast. Of course, I'm your host, Bill Ream, and for the first time ever in the history of the Where Have You Been podcast, the long, varied, and extensive history of the podcast, we have our first repeat guest on the show today. If you have been listening from the beginning, you'll remember fantastic author and world traveler, Jasmine Haymond. Jasmine's back. Welcome back, Jasmine.
Oh, thanks so much, Bill, for having me. I really appreciate it.
I'm really glad to have you back. Matter of fact, before we had wrapped that episode, we even said, maybe we should do this again. And here we are. So just in case anyone didn't listen to that first episode, let's give you a chance once again to tell everyone, who are you?
So I'm an author. I do have a day job, but I do have two short books. One's a Smarty Pants travel guide on featuring planning, packing, but also Italy and Egypt. And then my Smarty Pants Travel Companion is mainly focused on planning and packing. So I'm a travel enthusiast. I started traveling when I was very young. And so it's definitely something that I love to do. My husband and I usually go on one big trip a year now, and we make it a good one. So it's really been something that I'm focused on, and I love traveling and I love sharing tips and information to help people travel better and smarter.
Always good things to have good things to know. Absolutely. So tell everyone again, if you wouldn't mind, what's the best place to find the books and to find you?
And so I'm on LinkedIn, and then the books are both on Amazon, and they're available on Amazon in hard copy or Kindle. So you can get either one of those.
Awesome. And is it just Jasmine Haymond on LinkedIn? Is that the easy way to?
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah. So it's just Jasmine Haymond on LinkedIn. And then if you like, I can provide a link for everyone.
Yeah. I think I had it in the notes last time, but I'll make sure I have it and I'll get it in there so that people can find you. You're welcome to talk about your day job. I don't even know if we ever talk about that, but we don't have to. It's up to you.
No, it's fine. I work for the state, and I started about 16 months ago, and I've moved a couple different departments, but I've landed where I want to be. And so working with DCFS and helping the records department get the records to the people requesting them regarding childcare cases.
Awesome. And you are living out there in the beautiful state of Utah.
I am.
And you love it there.
Yeah, my husband and I were talking, I love it because it's home, but we plan on retiring elsewhere. And so, I've lived here all my life. I've traveled quite a bit. I have spent time other places, but I know Utah like the back of my hand. And so it's something that I know very well, but by the time we retire, we're ready to move.
I hear you. Have you have any places in mind yet besides Venice?
Well, I want to move to the south of France, but my husband wants Italy. And I said, well, here's a compromise. Let's move somewhere near Ventimiglia, which is right on the border.
Perfect.
of France and Italy.
That's a dream. That would be perfect.
Yeah, it is.
Awesome. Well, let's do this because I do it every episode. And
Hmm.
again, we talked about a lot of the places, especially the places that you've been outside of the country in the last
Hmm.
episode. But just in case those listeners that are listening today didn't hear that first episode, would you mind again just telling everyone, Jasmine, where have you been?
So my first trip started with Chicago, and then from there, I spent 2 summers in Puerto Rico with my grandparents, and then I've been mostly the western states, Idaho, Wyoming, and Utah, Nevada, and then spent some time in California, a lot of time in LA. We been to Disneyland a bazillion times. And then I have traveled across the country, lived in Georgia for about 6 months. I've been to Florida and New York. I have seen Niagara. I recommend it to anyone. It's an excellent trip and it's beautiful. And then outside the country, I've been through Heathrow a few times. Like I can't say I've been to the UK, but I've been through Heathrow many times. And then France, Italy, Egypt, and I feel like I'm forgetting, but I think that's it. Oh, technically Germany too. And then last time we went through Amsterdam, so that was fun.
And there, I believe, is that an addition to the list is France.
France is the addition, yes. So we stayed in Nice and we only had 4 days. And so um, definitely we discovered, I don't like to brag or anything, but I did a really good job hooking up the hotel with the tram location this time. We were right, like you walk outside the hotel and it's right there. So I
Nice.
was really happy with that. And,
And you
zooming in on the maps helps.
and so you were just there this, well, depending on when this airs, late summer, early fall of 25. And
Right.
why did you choose that area, having not been there before?
Having not been there before, we had seen video footage with Rudy Maxa and Rick Steves, and then there's Riviera Go on YouTube. And all of them rave about the food and the people, the environment, how beautiful it is, and everything I've seen just, it just looks like excellent heaven there. And so we decided to loop that into our trip. And it was absolutely incredible
Everything you expected and hoped for and more?
and more.
Yeah.
And we went at the perfect time of year. So we left September 20th and we spent the next 4 days after travel in Nice. And it was absolutely incredible. The weather was perfect. The hotel we stayed in was about a block and a half from the beach. And like I said, it was right outside the tram line. But we actually ended up Ubering a lot. So he says this in one of his videos, spend money to save time. And so when you do that, you can rent a car there, sure. But it works out to be about sixes. So if you rent a car for a few days, you have to pay for the car and the insurance if you don't have international coverage, plus gas, right? And petrol is very expensive over there. And so we figured it out and it was just a pinch more, just a few dollars more to Uber. And we Ubered everywhere. And I will say one thing about doing that, it takes all of the anxiety out because the drivers know where they're going. They live there, and that's what they do. And we Ubered up to the Villa Fruzi de Rothschild. Ubered up to Ez. We Ubered to Antibes. It just saves you a lot of time and frustration and headache. And the drivers are all very professional, really polite. They all speak English. And so it's very, very tourist friendly.
Yeah. And I will say, I can completely agree with that. I've driven in a couple of different countries, and it's not
Hmm.
so much, and even like different cities and states when you go traveling or, vacationing somewhere or traveling somewhere.
Hmm.
For me, it's not so much finding the place that I'm going to. It's I
Hmm.
stress about parking,
Hmm.
especially if you're in a city. If you're out
Yeah.
rural somewhere, who cares? You'll figure it out. But yeah, that I really do get
The
true
cities
anxiety.
are. Yeah, and the cities are much more challenging. And especially if you have, a dense European city, for example, any places like Nice or Rome or Genoa, also Milan. Milan is insane. It is huge and it is a spaghetti bowl as well. And so it's it is so much simpler to just spend the money and, plan to spend the money and call for an Uber. That way you don't have to think about it. You don't get lost. You don't get your car towed, all that stuff. So,
Hmm.
and with that little bit of expenditure, it just made our lives so much simpler. We had a really enjoyable time. The food was excellent. We toured about Old Nice and Antibes. We went to the Picasso Museum um, and walked along the promenade. It stretches the whole length of the bay. And so you can walk from Old Nice all the way to the airport if you are so inclined.
Wow.
Yeah,
Not that you would
it's
do that, but
not that you would do that. I mean, but if if people live there, they're jogging and riding bikes and rollerblading and all
yeah.
kinds of stuff. So,
How was the Picasso Museum? I'm just curious. I'm not super into that kind of art stuff, but I just wonder,
mhm.
you know, did you enjoy it? I guess.
Oh, absolutely. I'm a an art fan for sure. And the thing I love about a lot of the museums that I've been to in Italy and the ones we went to in France, they're well designed, they're a little smaller, and I mean, not like the Louvre, the Louvre is going to be gigantic, but the smaller museums, the Picasso Museum is in a castle. And so they
That's
have the
cool.
rooms. It is, it's so cool. And they have the rooms laid out, kind of different sections and periods. They do have some photographs of him working and all of that. And then they have, the loft upstairs is where he stayed most of the time and was painting and sculpting, because he was furiously working all the time. And he was a multi-medium, so he did a lot of sculpture, a lot of paint, a little bit with fabric. And they do have a decently sized or equipped gift shop with a lot of his cards and photos, shirts, books, things like that. And being in the castle, it's really cool. It's very, very old, but it's modernized and there are restrooms and all that. And so it's really a great experience. Um, the day that we went, we did have to wait online to get in, but it was like 15 minutes. So if you don't go in peak season, and Picasso tickets cannot be purchased beforehand, it's just one of those, get there and show up. But if you get there earlier and, or if you don't mind waiting 15, 20 minutes, it's not that big a deal. The weather's quite pleasant. It wasn't raining or anything. And so we were able to go through, have an enjoyable time, and then we stopped to get lunch and some dessert and headed back. We did a little bit of shopping. It's just beautiful there. I cannot stress that enough.
And I would probably like I would give it a chance if I was there. I would probably go.
Hmm.
Once I'm somewhere where I'm in a place where there is beautiful artwork, I do appreciate it. It's never really been a huge thing that I seek out, I guess. And I didn't realize that
Yeah.
he did so many other things besides just painting. So I would have probably enjoyed that very much. But
Yeah. And they did have other they have like installations of other
hmm,
artists as well. So there
cool.
below there was some other artist work, and then on the upper levels, all of his stuff was there. And I have a particular favorite, which is it's a very simple piece, and it's in his later period, and it's a bit cubist, but it is just simply a slice of watermelon on a table with a little knife. And
Hmm.
it's very simple, but the colors are really intense and it's just really neat looking. I have a copy of it in my house and it was so, you know, gratifying and just excellent to see it in person because the colors are so saturated.
Sure.
It was,
There's
the
definitely
artwork was really good.
good artwork can actually, you know this, but can actually change your mood,
Yes.
affect your feelings and stuff, and you can kind of get lost in a piece or just it can just calm you down
Oh,
when you just need to
absolutely.
just feel calm.
Yeah, and that's the other thing about museums. If you are having a rough day, go to a museum. It just, you know, especially midday, when there's not too many people about, the Fine Arts Museum in Utah, they have some excellent pieces. Their permanent collection is really, really good because they have a combination of both. So they have classics and then they have modern. And so I recommend museums anytime. I mean, you don't even have to really, if you're having a bad day, and you don't even have to really look at the art too close, just have a walk through and it'll calm your mind.
Just to be clear, not like we're talking like art museums, not like a Holocaust museum or a
No,
wartime museum or something like that.
no, no,
That
no,
might not calm anybody.
no, no. Yeah, and we don't have too much interest in going to Auschwitz or anything
Yeah,
like that.
yeah,
I just spend the whole time crying, so.
yeah. Totally different feels.
Yeah. It is. And a lot of the museums I've seen in Europe, they're all white walls on the inside. So you have these beautiful white walls, and then you have these giant works of art, and it's really just kind of captures you in the mood. It's really great.
Yeah, that's awesome. You said the weather was good when you were there. What was the temperature like?
Perfect for me. It was the warmest it was like mid 70s,
Perfect. Yep.
leaning 80s. And the humidity there was absolutely perfect in balance. So, I mean, my husband even asked me the first night we got there, we were, just exploring about. He just had his phone out and I was following him around. And he's like, "Are you wearing makeup?" I'm like, "I just have mascara on," because my skin really loved it, which was nice. But Nice is I think, there's a reason why people love it there.
Yeah.
And between the Mediterranean Sea and the foliage, it just creates this perfect balance. And where it's located, the air isn't too salty and it's breezy. It's not suffocating. I know in the summer it's probably a bit sweltering because it is like that. But, shoulder season is always better,
Hmm. Yeah.
and so and there were people, but it was not busy by any means.
Sure. Perfect timing. Kids are going back to school in the States, so
Hmm.
families are busy, and yeah, it's excellent.
Yeah, it was a great time. Lots of locals.
Yeah. Well, what else did you do when you were there? You were Ubering.
Yes, we were Ubering all over. So we went up to the Villa Efrusi de Rothschild, excuse me. And the Baroness built her villa there, and it is on a peninsula that comes out between Nice and Villefranche. And it's pink and white, and the grounds are incredible. It is absolutely beautiful. The gardens are, you need at least, I would say, 3 to 4 hours because it's nice to, you can tour the villa, tour the grounds, have lunch, and then, go from there. That's what we did. But it's best to get there early. And we were able to get some excellent photos with very few people, and the fountains were on, and it was absolutely magic. I mean,
And
it was just beautiful.
are we talking 18th century? 18th
I
century? Older?
I would say 18th century.
Yeah.
18th
That's just
century.
amazing.
She had some of her clothing there, and then she collected bits from the Orient. There was a bit of clothing from the Orient and also some statuary there, small pieces in porcelain. And the interior of the villa is fairly sparse, but they do have some of the sitting rooms, bedrooms, and the china service room. There were different sets of china that she would have for different gatherings because she loved hosting. And then upstairs, the balcony that you view out the back to the grounds it's pretty decent sized. It's probably about, I would say, 12 by 12 feet, maybe. And it's, tall ceiling that's more like a lanai with arches. And then as you look over the grounds, you can see all the beautiful green with the palm trees and everything. It's just incredible.
So awesome.
Yeah,
Have
it was beautiful.
Have you ever been? Obviously, there's nothing like that in the U.S. because the U.S. isn't that old. But
Hmm.
I mean, I guess there could be something technically from the 18th century. But have you ever been to the Biltmore by chance?
I have not. I've always wanted to go, and I know it's the largest built residence in the U.S.
Yeah, I just wonder. I've been there one time, and it's the only thing like when you're talking about that, it's that kind of just came to mind as really
Hmm.
cool to see something and to have it look. Obviously, they've modernized things for tours and things like that, but to be able to see the way things were back then, and they have the
Hmm.
rooms set up as close as they can to what they would have looked like, you know, back in the 1800s, whatever. And it's just it's awesome.
Hmm.
Highly recommend.
Yes, and absolutely. And it gives you a window back in time and how things were so much more different than they are now. And some things are the same.
Yeah,
It's kind of interesting that way.
and in some ways, even though technology obviously has brought us so far, some things back then were just simpler.
Simpler, some ways better.
Yeah, without a doubt, absolutely.
Yeah.
So, did you go? So, you went other places in France or other places besides France?
So we spent 4 days in Nice,
Hmm.
only four. I could have stayed for, forever. But then we jumped from there. We took a plane. We stopped in Barcelona and just changed planes and went to Milan. My husband wanted to see the Cenacolo Vinciano, or um, the Last Supper. And so we went to see that. We were in Milan for just a couple of days, so we were able to see that. And then we were right next to the square where the Duomo and the Galleria are.
Are they
And
still working
so
on the Duomo?
they're always working on
Okay.
it.
I thought they kind of was the
Yeah.
thing, but yeah, we were able to go up to the top when they were last year, and they were still working on it then,
Hmm.
obviously. But what a beautiful site that is too.
Yeah, it is quite the structure. And our room out of the master, we were in a little flat and we could see the top of the Duomo because it is such a large structure. We did not get tickets to go in though, but we took some pictures outside, because we were only there for just a couple of days. And so it
Sure.
was basically just a pit stop until we went on to Venice.
I can't believe you went back to Venice. I'm very surprised.
Well, my husband wanted to do a bit of scavenger hunting for some ancient artifacts. And so we toured about in places that we had not ever been and were off the beaten path in, kind of the tail sections. So in Castello and then also in Dossoduro and San Polo, because most people, when they go, they just spend their time in St. Mark's Square. So we got out to the tail end. There's a nice park there and toured, because there's 150 churches there, and each one of them are so different. And we were able to get out to San Giorgio Maggiore, which is, if you look at the island of Venice, it's shaped like a fish, and then Dossoduro comes around the front, and it's at the point of that, right across from St. Mark's Square. And so we did a bit of scavenger hunting, and
So
there are
what is that?
oddities.
He is into that kind of stuff, I assume, and just kind of decided this is
Yeah, he was reading up on it. Peter Ackroyd, the author, he is a Venice scholar. And so he has written a bit about it. My husband was reading about it. He's like, we need to go find some of this stuff. So, and he wanted to do a long tour and more thorough tour of Venice because we've been a couple of times, but really just dipped our toes in. We hadn't ventured out too far. And so Peter Ackroyd had gone out to the cemetery, San Michele. And so we went out there, which is a beautiful cemetery. And they have wall tombs, which are basically mausoleums surrounding the entire cemetery where people are kept.
because they can't have anything underground there.
Right, right. And so those are unique to Venice. And it's a beautiful, serene place. There's just a lot of cypress. It's very quiet. And you don't feel the crush of the tourists out there. And so it's not very far. It's just across on the north side, and it's just an island by itself. And so we went and spent a couple of hours out there and then came back in, and we just did, lots of touring because there's a lot of little oddities and sculptures here and there that, you have to look for them or you would just pass right by them. And so, because they're kind of tucked into nooks and crannies, and because Venice is so labyrinthian, there are so many different things to see, different time periods that are kind of mixed in. And so it's a really interesting conglomeration of all different types of time periods, sculptures, mosaic work. All of the churches have fantastic art in them. We went into two different scuolas, which are just basically schools of art. So one is the School of Tintoretto, and then the other was set up by the Dalmatian population. And that particular scuola has that famous painting of George slaying the dragon. And so that's a really famous piece. And the School of Tintoretto has all of these incredible pieces of art. And they're gigantic. They take up a whole, wall from, 20 by 20 feet. It's just crazy.
Wow.
Yeah.
Just out of curiosity, how
hmm
much of the list did you get through the whole list that you guys were looking to try to find?
I would say some of the list was restaurants, so I marked down everything in each area. And some places are going to be closed at certain times of day on certain days. Venice they have their own hours and every place is different.
Yep.
So it's good to, map out everything on Google Maps and write down the hours. And on that day, check your stats so that you know where you're going and okay, this restaurant's closed, but this one's open, so we can go there for lunch. And so I would say minus the restaurants, we covered quite a bit. I would say we covered 75% of what we wanted to see, which was really good.
And was this your longest stay in Venice?
It was, yeah. We were able to procure a really nice flat in Cannaregio at the Goulier Bridge, which is it's fairly populous now with tourists. There's a lot of shopping there, a lot of restaurants, and we stay there because it's really convenient with the Vaporetto stop versus where the flat is located. So it's just up and over the bridge and, to the left. It's very close. And it's also close to the pharmacy just down the way, and there are two different grocery spots there as well. So
Oh,
it's
nice.
nice if you're staying for some time, stay in a flat, and then, you can get food whenever you need it. And then there's plenty of restaurants on the way down.
Yeah, and it's such a nice place that everything is within walking distance. I
It
say that with
is.
some sarcasm because you can't. All you can do there is walk. But
Yes. And I mean, we always order our Vaporetto pass, because we are touring on the Vaporetto a little bit, but mostly we walked. And there was actually a 24-hour strike, and so we couldn't take the Vaporetto that day, but we ended up venturing out that day. And so we saw more than we would have ordinarily. And so actually turned out to be a good thing.
yeah, I love when things like that happen. And we talked last
hmm
time about like when you and I both traded stories about being stuck in Italy in different places. And it's
Yeah.
just like sometimes if you just let things happen they're out of your control. So why try to control it and just let experiences happen?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, it's really important, especially on tour. You don't want to stress out. And, my husband and I were talking about, this particular vacation was really good. And I think it's because we were in the proper mindset that, we knew that a strike may happen. So we're going to be aware of that. And then also we planned our behinds off. We planned and planned and planned and planned and planned and planned. So that going to the lengths of planning and understanding, reviewing and reviewing, making sure that, I mean, if you're just staying in one spot for a week, you're not, it's like you're going to an island, you're staying on a resort, you're not really going to venture out. You don't need to do that. But if you're venturing out and about and doing a lot of touring and doing something different each day, it is really good to plan, but also be flexible and have many options. So if you can't do this or this, well, let's go do this instead. You know what I mean?
Oh, for sure. And I think honestly, like, as long as you're planning early enough ahead of time, or as much as you can anyway, I love the
Hmm.
planning part of it. That's to me, that's part of the
Oh, yeah,
vacation. Part of the trip.
absolutely. Absolutely. Planning. I mean, that's why I wrote my books is that, planning and packing, we've, really honed our packing skills and our planning skills. And it's, we know what to take and what not to take when we're going to certain places because, on the grand tour, they would pack trunks with, everything. But it's really important to understand where you're going and what you need while you're there. Um, how much hiking about are you going to be doing? How much walking are you going to be doing? Are you going to be in the water every day? Those types of things. And if you get your planning down and your packing, your trips are much more enjoyable.
Yeah, for sure. And the more you do it, the better you get at it. But
Oh, absolutely.
certainly taking tips and advice from people who've already been doing it, such as yourself, is valuable as well. So tell me, do you have any really cool stories from this vacation? Things that happened to you guys, or did you do everything together? You didn't take time apart for the most part, did you?
Yeah, yeah, my husband and I are really good travel partners,
That's
and
awesome.
so we're able to do everything together. The only time I had to run to the pharmacy for something in Venice, and so I just, walked up and over the bridge, went to the pharmacy and came back. It was no big
Hmm.
deal. But when we're in different places, generally we tend to stay together. Um, I've seen scary stories about random abductions. Generally, it's in larger cities, but we don't like to separate too much or too far. So we do well together though, because we've been on a few trips and we understand that how we treat each other is very important to our happiness. Do our best to behave and be respectful and treat each other with kindness and patience, even though sometimes things can get frustrating. Like, I will say, the train machines where you get the tickets in France are different, of course, than they are in Italy. They're not quite as user friendly. And so we had to figure it out, and we figured it out. We took one train back from Villefranche to Nice, and then we pretty much Ubered after that because it just wasn't worth it. And so Nice is a very, very small place. And so it's much easier to get around. And well, I would say Nice is small. The bay is small. And so you know exactly where you're going versus, anywhere else that you wouldn't understand how to get to. And so it's much easier to get around there. And the drivers are great. And
Yeah.
so for the most part though, we stick together and I think one of my favorite parts was the second day we got up and we took an Uber up to the top of Mont Ballon, and there is an old fort up there. It's medieval. And so we took a look around and took some pictures, hiked about, and then there is a short hike down from the top into Villefranche. So you can actually go from Nice to Villefranche just by hiking down. And it's only like a mile and a half. It's not even that long. And so, and it's not difficult at all. And like I said, we went in the morning, so it wasn't too packed or anything. And then we hiked down into Villefranche and had lunch. And I was telling my husband, we're eating by the seaside in Villefranche. It's absolutely beautiful. I'm eating pizza, which is my favorite food, and listening to Earth, Wind, and Fire. I don't think it's going to get any better for me. Like it was perfect.
That was your moment in time.
It was. It was absolutely excellent. And, of course, the food is. excellent everywhere. I know Paris gets a bad rap for rudeness and that type of thing. We did not experience any of that at all. All of the people that we spoke to in Nice and the surrounding areas were so polite and kind, helpful, because they do have a lot of tourists there and everyone's there. There's a really, chill vibe. Everyone's there to have a good time and just relax. And so from the shopkeepers to the servers to the drivers, it was just an excellent experience.
And I don't know if I'm making this up in my head, but I feel like I was hearing
Mhm.
somewhere that Nice is actually picking up even more year over year as far as becoming a destination for more people.
I'm not surprised. There are plenty of hotels. I know that in peak season, of course, in the summer, a lot of people in Europe tend to end up in France and Spain because of the beaches. And I know that Nice's beach is rocky. It's pebbles, which is fine. But also people will go to Pampelon, which is on the other end of um, Antibes, where Cannes is, in between Antibes and Cannes, or they'll venture all the way to Saint-Tropez if they have a little more cash,
Okay,
because it's more like Beverly Hills.
gotcha. So, and it's total side note, but I meant to ask this when it was
Hmm.
timely. What do you have on your pizza in France?
I usually just get the margarita, it's cheese and basil. They did have, and I'm a small eater, and so I'll have like two to three pieces, which is about half of a pizza. And my husband will usually take the rest. And this particular pizza had a sunny side up egg. I guess a lot of the pizzas there have that. And he
Wow,
said it was so excellent. He said it was just decadent and yummy.
you
So, but I'm not a
skipped.
runny egg person.
Okay, gotcha. Wow, that's really interesting.
Yeah, a lot of the differences, in culture and food is definitely something they do differently there, but it is so good. And I definitely recommend Old Nice. It's small, smaller than I thought it would be. And so it's just a small area to I guess it would be the right end of the beach. And if you're looking at it from the sea, and there's just a plethora of shops and restaurants, markets, and it's very, very charming. It's, all of the original buildings and a lot of locals live there. And there's this particular restaurant called Blend, and they do music and food, and it's more of a breakfast place. So their logo has a little guy, he's a coffee cup. So they run vinyl and breakfast.
That's
So
very
it was,
cool.
yeah, it was quite hip and very enjoyable. And I had the best French toast I have ever had in my life.
They just call it toast. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, yeah, it was brioche, really, really thick
Mm.
and just absolutely incredible. It actually brought tears to my eyes.
Oh my gosh.
It was so good.
I haven't eaten dinner yet either, so this is terrible. But I do find myself gravitating to like the older the better. Like when I go to places, I enjoy modern
Hmm.
cities and modern places as well, but I just love being in places that have been in existence for thousands of years or whatever,
Yeah,
and just
yeah,
feel you can
absolutely.
feel the history when you're there, and just imagine people walking down these cobblestone streets and such, or
Right.
riding a horse down the street or whatever, and what they were wearing back then. And I love to kind of get lost in that sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. It's very interesting being in a different place like that with all of that history. And I mean, there's a lot of that in France, of course, but I felt it most in Venice. I felt a little bit in Milan, but it is so dense and it's very cosmopolitan. It is pretty much a business hub.
Hmm.
And so there are suits walking around everywhere.
Hmm. Yeah, and all the high
And
end shops and all that.
yeah, yeah. And so, but in Venice, history it's just steeped in history.
Yeah. When you were in Milan, Did you happen to
Hmm.
see any indications that, because I believe the Olympics are going to be there this winter, right?
I didn't see any of that, but there was I would say peaceful protest. It was very peaceful, and it was actually a beautiful event in the courtyard of the Duomo. So we were walking through, and they had people standing with flags, and they were playing music, and it was very nice. There was no aggroness about it or anything like that. It was very peaceful and a beautiful performance. And so it was just to keep in mind, peaceful protest,
Mm-hmm.
mainly centered around Ukraine and things like that,
Uh,
because, they're very close there.
yeah. Yeah, so I never experienced that when we were in any of our times in Italy. We did actually experience that in Athens when we were there. It was a pretty
Hmm.
large protest they had. I don't remember what it was for because this was, gosh, 9 years ago now. But
Hmm.
yeah, it is. It's another reminder that nowhere's perfect, and there's things going
No,
on that we don't need to understand necessarily, or maybe we should understand depending on the gravity of what it is. But
right, right.
people are still, we've talked about this in the last episode, people are human beings, and life is, so many similarities no matter where you are in the world that we don't even understand or think about. So
Right, right. And we say that technology makes the world smaller, but it is still quite a large place. And the more that we understand and, are accepting of different cultures, and I think travel does that. It helps you understand how people live in different places of the world, different customs, and why they do what they do, and good or bad. And it's important to understand that, but also, support the measures that are taken to make things better.
yeah, and one of those things that makes me want to travel more is learning those cultural differences. I love to
Hmm.
understand why people dress the way they do, or why they may uh, I don't know, even just say different words. Maybe they don't say something like we would say here,
Right.
or different customs and such. Just it's really cool to learn and understand that stuff. And some of those things, like depending on where you're going, some of that stuff you really do want to research ahead of time, because something very simple here, such as even a handshake or a wave or a thumbs up or something, could be truly offensive in another country. So stupid little things
Oh,
to think about,
absolutely.
not stupid, but little things to think about that could be huge.
Yeah, absolutely. That the first place that comes to mind is Egypt. It's a very conservative society, but as long as you're polite and you follow the direction of your guide, you're fine. And, I tell everyone who goes, if you're going with a tour, stay with your group, mind your manners, because there's no like touching in public and things like that. So guys, don't put your arm around your lady and vice versa. And unless you're like helping someone out of a vehicle, something like that.
Hmm.
And then, like we're going to Japan next, and so they don't do tipping there. That's considered offensive, and which is, it's a positive thing for us, less money, but also, they're a culture built on tradition and respect. And respect is the most important thing to them. And so we want to make sure that we are very respectful and because we've also heard that people are not being respectful and the Japanese are not pleased with that. And we don't want to be part of that. We basically want to be, invisible. We just want to go and experience and leave and not leave any kind of unpleasant impressions.
Sure. Yeah, that reminds me of a book, which is, it's actually about traveling to the national parks, because, and there's
Hmm.
something about that with people who are just disrespectful, go to the national parks, they ruin it for everybody, they make messes and leave things behind, and they take ancient artifacts and things that they shouldn't even be touching, first of all. And
Oh,
the
yeah.
book is titled Leave Only Footprints. which I just think is a wonderful way to think about it. Like the only thing you should
Oh
leave behind
yeah,
is just your footprints.
absolutely. And being from Utah, we are definitely an outdoor state. And we have our national parks and monuments. And in every store that is an outdoor store, either REI, Patagonia, or Outdoor Research, wherever, they always have little sayings here and there, leave it better than you found it. Make sure to clean up after yourself, all of those types of things, if you drop it, pick it up, please. All of those types of things that should be common sense, but some people either they weren't raised to have it be an occurrence for them, or they're just blatantly disrespectful, which is unfortunate.
Yeah, and I was going to say, I mean, I've seen things like that as well when you're talking about being in the parks, being in nature, things like that. But really, shouldn't it be common
Hmm.
sense? Like everywhere you are, if you drop
Okay.
something, just pick it up. Or if you mess something up by accident, put it back together the way it was supposed to be. But
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
And well, I mean, like when we stay in the flats, I make sure and go through. Usually, if you're staying in a flat, the host will have, cleaning supplies, and we always make sure to leave it spotless. And I will go through the day that we leave and Swiffer everything to make sure that there's no crumbs on the ground or anything like that. And, because we want to, when we make a plan to go back, we usually want to stay with the same host. And so it's just really important to be respectful and kind, and people definitely appreciate that and will reciprocate, you know?
for sure. Yeah, and you don't have to. You say spotless. You don't have to clean every nook and cranny because you're still probably paying
No.
for a cleaning service. But you leave it. You leave it respectful, like you said. You throw away your garbage and you clean up the counters. And yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, that should just be basic common sense. Unfortunately, it's not. I don't
You
think.
think?
So this most recent trip that you took, is there anything that we're missing that you haven't talked about yet? Any place that you went that really created some great memories for you, or anything like that?
Well, I'm trying to think if there was anything in particular that stood out, other than the excellence of Nice and me wanting to move there.
Yeah, you weren't kidding when you said that
Some
earlier. You could have stayed there forever.
no. It was absolutely beautiful. And I understand, it does get crowded in the summertime, but it's like that here, Populace increases in the summer when the weather's nice, the kids are out of school, people are walking about in the evening and all of those types of things. So, when you understand that, it's no big deal. And just really how kind the area was, because it is very laid back there. I think that was my pleasant surprise, because I am always nervous. I don't want to offend anyone or say the wrong thing, or, no one wants to be treated with disdain. And so I was pleasantly surprised by everyone we encountered. And like I said, being able to Uber was quite luxurious because it made things so much easier.
Yeah,
But I would say the villa was the height for me, and also being able to go to the Picasso Museum. Those were excellent, excellent experiences.
very cool. So you already had a liking for Picasso, but do you? I don't know if I asked you this.
Mhm.
Do you tend to go to? It sounds like you kind of do go to museums when
Mhm.
there is one around when you're somewhere, or did you kind of choose this
Yes,
one because you already
absolutely.
have an affinity for Picasso?
Yeah, well, I'll just use Venice as an example. There are several museums there, and it's always best to go first thing because, the it gets busier throughout the day. And so we went to the Academia because we wanted to see the Carpaccio, but unfortunately they were in restoration, so they were out. So we made sure to check the Hieronymus Bosch and a bunch of the other artists there. That is the kind of classical museum of Venice. And then we went to the Peggy Guggenheim, which sits right on the Grand Canal. It is a beautiful structure. It was her home, and she supported young artists, and in particular Jackson Pollock. So there are a couple of Pollocks there. There was a Salvador Dali, and also Kandinsky and Paul Klee, the face, of course.
Wow. Very cool.
Yeah, it was really cool. And it's a beautiful structure too, which is it's all white. And then the exterior is a little more modern. And the terrace sits right. You can go out on the terrace and it sits right on the canal. So it's a beautiful place to visit.
I know I definitely walked past it more than once.
Hmm.
Just I don't remember, and I do. Yeah, did they have like banners hanging sometimes on that, right? With kind of like what's going on.
They do. So sometimes they'll have an exhibition of a installation for a short period of time. And so they'll do, they'll feature an artist and then that artist will move on. So they did have an installation at the Picasso Museum. When we were at the Guggenheim, it was the standard works of art that are usually there.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, yeah. I think I now I'm think I'm able to visualize it, and I'm sure if I look back through my photos, I'm sure I probably have pictures of it too. But
hmm
so heading back to the states with you, um,
hmm
speaking specifically about Utah, actually, because you've spent so much time there
hmm
most of your life, I guess.
hmm
I know you said like the areas they increase in the summertime. People come in because it's nice weather and everything. But you also
hmm
get a decent amount, maybe not where you are specifically though, but I mean, there's a lot of people come there from the wintertime for skiing, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Our, the slogan is the greatest snow on earth
Okay.
because coming from the West, the climate comes over the lake and runs up against the mountains, and so it has nowhere to go, so it immediately drops. That's why we get a nice snowfall most of the time. And so Brighton and Solitude and Snowbird and Alta, the skiers ski Alta, the boarders do everywhere else. Um, Alta and Snowbird, though, are very steep. So all of the, double black diamonds are there. And there are lodges and hotels and anything you can think of up there. And a lot of people do Airbnbs very close to the canyon areas because people come for the snow. And then in the summer, everybody comes to hike. And then also central Utah in Moab, a lot of people do four-wheeling over the Red Rock country.
So, what are some of your favorite things to do in Utah?
Mainly, we spend a lot of our time walking. If I had to go visit a favorite site, I really enjoy going out to Antelope Island. It is the north end of the state, kind of the north end of the Great Salt Lake. And it's probably, Syracuse is like maybe an hour, 40 minutes north. And there's a long causeway that goes out to that island. And it's fairly sparse because it's desert. But if you go in the spring, it's quite green and beautiful. And there are buffalo and antelope. Last time we went in spring, my aunt happened to be here from Georgia, and we took her out. She wanted to go out there, and we went through the museum. And we drove about a little bit and came across an antelope with her baby. And so it was a nice drive. And then also there is Crystal Hot Springs, which is even further north, and it is the highest mineral content in the world. So
Wow.
it's quite popular, and you'll see tour buses come in. Groups from Asia, groups from Russia. I've seen groups from Germany. And there's an Olympic pool, a wading pool, and then a larger hot pot pool. And then they have three or four single hot tubs, and then there's a smaller chlorine pool, which nobody gets in because nobody wants to get in there.
Right. But and you're talking like the Olympic pool and everything's filled with the water from the hot springs.
Yeah,
Oh wow.
it's incredible. And the water is excellent. When you come out, your skin is like silk. And so it's a lot of people go for that. And then there are waterfalls set up. It's set up to look natural. So there's rock structure there, but there are waterfalls. And I remember specifically there was this one gentleman and he had scars in the back of at the lower of his back, and he was sitting under the hot waterfall. And so, people go there for water therapy. And I know that, a lot of the royalty back in the day, they would go to the seaside where the water was warmer because it's therapeutic for injuries and things like that. So that's a lot of what you see at the hot springs. I've also seen people in the Olympic pool. They were doing energy work and they had a woman floating and then probably six ladies around her and they were all doing energy work. And so it's something that people do enjoy here. We do have a theme park. I mean, Lagoon is it's fine. I've been a bazillion times, so
But
it's fun.
it's no Disney.
They think they are, but they're not. But it is, it's fun, and a lot of people go. And I'm trying to think of, Zion National Monument is spectacular. The cliffs are pretty incredible when you're there. It's just these towering cliffs of red rock. It's pretty striking. And then I've hiked out to the Delicate Arch. That's always a good hike. It's pretty easy. And I've done it both in the middle of the day and the middle of the night. And you can do it either way.
Middle of the night.
Yeah, especially if there's a full moon. A lot of people do it on the full moon because it's lit,
Oh,
and
wow.
there are no other lights out there, and so it's very easy to see with the moon.
Oh my gosh. I'm sure. That's awesome.
And then up the canyons, both canyons are strikingly beautiful, all the rock, and especially in the spring and the fall, we get a bit of leafing, but not like New York or anything.
Hmm.
But it is beautiful. And then I'm trying to think. East, we have Park City. There's a lot of skiing there as well, Deer Valley, and all of that. But we stay mainly around the state capital where we live.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful area. We walk a lot. Tucked by the Capitol on the east side, there is what are called the avenues. And it's some of the first neighborhoods that were built in Salt Lake. And the homes are beautiful. A lot of people have very nice yards. And so in spring, the flowers are out and it's just incredible.
That's awesome. It's so great
Yeah.
to love the area and the place that you're in, even if you do plan to move away someday.
Yeah, it's definitely home. And, it's comfortable because we know it like the back of our hand. We've been everywhere. Salt Lake is not that big. On a non-busy traffic day, you can get anywhere in within 20 minutes. So it's pretty quick.
That's awesome
And
too.
then downtown is extremely walkable. And sometimes we'll walk downtown, but a lot of the time we spend going over through the avenues because we're not that far. We're
Yeah.
just on the other side of the Capitol building.
Oh, that's cool. Literally just walk.
Hmm.
Yeah. That's awesome. Well, I wanted to touch
Yeah.
on that because that's actually something that I'd like to do more of is just touching on, you know, especially if someone's lived in a place for a long time, talking about where they live because
Hmm.
we always want to talk about things outside of home in the home area. But also because last time we didn't really touch on the United States that much besides really
Hmm.
Disney, your distaste
Yeah.
of Las Vegas. And not it wasn't necessarily that. It was just you've been there, done it. Don't need to do it again,
Yeah.
kind of thing.
Well, I mean, it's fun if you've never been. It's a wild
Uh
time.
huh.
That's great. But I've been so many times,
Yeah.
so I don't need to go again.
Yeah. Is there? Do you have another favorite place or favorite memory just being somewhere in the United States? I'm putting you on the spot here. We didn't talk about this.
Oh no, it's fine. I love San Francisco. I always love going to Southern California, Florida, usually through like Miami and Daytona is really nice to visit beaches and stuff. I really liked it there. I did love driving cross country through the state of New York. Um, we went to see a couple of concerts there. We had one in Rochester and then one in Glens Falls. Driving across, the rest stops are very well equipped, so that was really nice. And also, they would have people selling wares, and I bought a jar of honey there. I'm a honey connoisseur, and I bought the best jar of honey I have ever had in my life. The flora there is incredible, and it just makes the honey 10 times better.
Yeah, there's a lot of
I
good
would
honey from
say,
like I would say from like maybe the area that I'm in, and then all the way up through. Yeah, through Western New York, especially. There's a lot of good honey.
Yeah, it's beautiful. And we went a little later after the leaves had started to turn, but we did see quite a bit of leafing there, which was really beautiful. But San Francisco is really fun. LA, of course, there's whatever you want to do, you can do it there.
I'm sure.
I
I've only been to LA
I
once,
tend
but
to
I
like
wasn't really in LA. I
yeah,
was more in Burbank.
yeah, and I tend to like places more where you can go to the ocean.
Yeah,
So San Francisco's nice because it's always there.
right, right. Well, let's say this. I'm not going to do the final five questions, which is a bummer
Hmm.
because we've already done them. So, unless anything has changed with your answers, I will ask you first of all, is there anything that's top of mind that you want to share before I do ask you a couple questions?
I tell everybody the same thing, plan well, pack well, and exercise patience and kindness. And one thing I experienced this trip is I slept a little bit better. So I did use a sleep aid, and that really helps kind of turn things as you're coming and going, but just for a couple of nights. And so if you're apt to do that, talk to your doctor or, whatever, and see if you want to do that. It just kind of helps push out the exhaustion of flying, and time zoning. So,
Yeah,
and just remember patience and kindness. Everybody's tired and it's, exhausting once you get there.
yeah.
Remember that through the airports.
Awesome. So the question, really the only question I have, which can go as long as you'd like it to, is
Mm.
I know that you had some amazing food besides a wonderful pizza in a beautiful restaurant with awesome music playing. But
Yeah.
so, can you share with me any of the meals that you had that stood out to you on this most recent trip that you had?
So I had at the villa, I had a wonderful orzo salad with tomato. It was excellent with fresh squeezed orange juice. It was so good. They have upscale food there. It's not too crazy. I mean, we had two dishes, ordered a glass of champagne, fresh squeezed juice, and it was around 70 euro, so it wasn't too bad. Definitely the French toast was incredible. And
That's
then my
right.
husband ordered a sandwich with, I think it was a chicken with avocado at blend, which was excellent. And then he had a seafood risotto and then another seafood bolognese dish that he said was just absolutely incredible. I can't
Oh,
eat seafood.
I
My
love a
body
good
has an aversion
risotto.
to it.
Oh no.
Yeah. Yeah, I developed it in my 30s and I can't have seafood, so it's a major bummer for me because I love crab. But he said it was just absolutely incredible. There are also specific treats and things in Venice. They sell a really good iced tea. I know it sounds very simple, but it's really good. And it's peach. And then all of the restaurants have fresh squeezed juice. And then if you ever get the chance and you're in Venice, anyone listening, go to Florian. It is a little pricier, but it is worth it. The quality is excellent. And I usually have the toast classico. It's basically a ham and cheese, but it's toasted just right, served with their signature sauce. And then my husband will get a either mortadella or the club there. And then we'll get a delightful dessert to share.
And you
And
said
they
that's
have,
in the square, right?
it is. It's next to the Campanile in the square and to the east. And it's a 300-year-old coffee house and it's beautifully decorated inside. And they
Yes.
have premium, excellent food.
Yes. And I believe when we were there, now that you're saying this, I believe my wife had gone in and she wanted to just get a cup of coffee, just to say that she had been
Hmm.
inside and had a cup of coffee. And the most
Hmm.
wonderful thing was people outside in the square playing music while you're
Oh, yeah.
sitting there
Yeah.
eating or just having a quick drink or whatever. And it's just
Yeah.
awesome.
Usually they're playing Vivaldi. And a lot of the time in the evenings, if you stay in Venice, they'll be playing in the square. And then there are a few restaurants there where they'll have tables outside and you can dance if you like.
Yeah, just awesome.
Hmm.
Anything else before I ask my final question, which you sort of already answered?
I just remind people, be patient and kind, and you'll get better service.
Yeah, it goes a long way.
It
So
really does.
the last question is the same that I always ask: is Jasmine, where are you going? I know you kind of mentioned it already, but and then maybe if you have
Hmm.
anything else planned, or specifically where are you going in Asia?
So we're headed to Japan next, and we're actually going to go either late November or December of 2026. And we'll see kind of how the days fall and the flights fall. And after that, we're headed to Greece. And then after that, I think we may have to go back to the south of France.
Nice, with a pit stop in Venice.
Maybe. I think we're good on Venice for now. We had the experience that we wanted to have and did quite a bit of scavenger hunting. And so I think we're ready to move on a little bit. But I definitely want to explore more of and stay a little bit longer. And so we also want to do southern Italy. So I think that would maybe be after Greece. We want to do Naples to go see Pompeii and then visit Capri. I would like to see Paestum, Jason and the Argonauts, um, and then spend a week in the south of Italy and then a week in Sicily.
Be so awesome. So many places
Hmm.
still that I want to go as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is great. When are you going to start working on your next book?
So the next one should be, I think, released next year. I have a little more compiling to do. There's a lot more information I have to pack into that one.
Awesome. Well, I'll be following along. We'll be in touch. And definitely, I'll put the link again in the show notes, the description, to let everyone know where to find you on LinkedIn. And I think the first time I was able to link directly to one or both of the books' Amazon sites pages. So I'll do that as well so people can find those. Thank you
That
so
sounds
much
great.
for reaching back out. And this was great to do it a second time. Again, first ever repeat guest on the podcast. So this is exciting. And
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
yeah, absolutely. And who knows, maybe you'll be the first ever triple guest on the show sometime down the line, especially with all these other travels you're doing.
I think that sounds great.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Jasmine, and have a great night.
You too. Thank you so much.
And there's another episode of the Where Have You Been podcast in the books. Thank you so much for listening today. It was another great guest with some great stories, as always, and I hope that you will support all of the guests by checking out the show notes and going to their web pages, seeing any socials and projects that they may have going on. And please, again, I'll ask as always to like, subscribe, rate, and review the podcast. It really does help to allow the podcast to grow and reach more people, and I appreciate you for doing that. Also, if you haven't done so, check out the website, whybpodcast.com, where you can find blog posts. If you'd like to be a guest, please register to be a guest on the site. And check out the merch page. There's some really cool stuff if you're interested in representing the pod, along with some other cool travel items and apparel that I'm working on every day as well. Join me again next week for another great guest with more incredible stories. New episodes drop every Sunday just after midnight Eastern Time. Until then, thank you for being here, and have a great day.